Hello friends, welcome to the Night Watchman channel. Today I'm going to tell you a terrifying and thrilling creepy horror story that will make you feel the chill of fear. If you enjoy my story, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can feel your love and support through your likes and subscriptions. I never imagined my life would narrow down to the hiss of a mop bucket and the hum of cheap ceiling lights. But life has a funny way of cornering you when you least expect it. After my husband Eric left last winter, I told myself I'd be fine. We'd been married 12 years, and somewhere along the way, we'd stopped being partners and turned into roommates. He moved out with a suitcase and a quiet apology, and I was left with an empty apartment, an overdrawn checking account, and silence that clung like humidity. By spring, I'd sold my wedding ring to keep up with rent. My old job at the clinic had cut staff, and my savings were gone. That's how I ended up here, working the graveyard shift at the Dollar Haven on Route 47 in Hollow Creek, Pennsylvania, a town barely visible on most maps. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady. Nights were quiet, predictable, and quiet, after months of crying myself to sleep, felt like peace. By 11 p.m., the last customers usually trickled out. I'd restock the shelves, wipe down the counters, and brew a fresh pot of coffee in the tiny break room that always smelled faintly of burnt sugar. The aisles were narrow, the linoleum chipped, but there was comfort in routine. That night, a Thursday in late September, started like every other. The parking lot outside was nearly empty, just the faint glow of a flickering street lamp over the cracked asphalt. Inside, the air was cool and stale, the radio murmuring a 90s soft rock song under the fluorescent buzz. I was halfway through refilling the candy shelf when the front door chimed. A man stepped in. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'6", with thin, silver-gray hair combed neatly back. His clothes were tidy, pressed khaki pants, a pale blue shirt tucked in tight, and brown loafers that looked soft from use. He carried no wallet, no phone, nothing but a single folded dollar bill pinched between his fingers. "Evening," I said, forcing a friendly tone. He smiled faintly. "Evening." His voice was calm, steady. The kind of tone you hear from someone who's been alone a long time. He took his time wandering down the aisles, eyes tracing every shelf. When he reached the counter, he set down a roll of mints and a small bottle of water. I scanned them, trying to fill the silence. "Pretty quiet out there tonight," I said. He looked up at me, really looked. His eyes were hazel, clear, but there was something about them that made my throat tighten. "Quiet," he said softly, "can be a dangerous thing." "Sometimes the devil hides in quiet places." I let out a small laugh, the kind you make when you don't know what else to do. "Guess that's one way to look at it." He didn't smile back. When I handed him his receipt, his hand moved fast, not rough, but deliberate, and closed around my wrist. His skin was cold, dry. "Be careful," he said, leaning closer. I could smell peppermint and something else, damp earth, like rain-soaked leaves. "There's a devil all the time." My pulse stuttered. Then just as suddenly he released me, tucked the receipt and mints into his pocket, and walked out. The chime jingled as the door shut, and the silence that followed felt heavier than before. I stared out the window, waiting for him to get into a car, but no headlights came on, no engine started. The parking lot was empty. For the next few nights, I told myself he was just lonely, maybe senile. Still, I started locking the doors earlier, checking the windows twice before closing. Then came Monday night. It was raining, that soft, steady kind that makes the world feel muffled. The store was empty. I'd just finished counting the drawer when a set of headlights swept across the glass front. They lingered. I glanced up. A white panel van idled at the far edge of the lot. No logo, no plates, just smooth metal where the tag should have been. My stomach twisted. The passenger door opened. A man in a dark hoodie stepped out, face hidden by a mask. He walked straight to the door, pushed through hard enough to make the chime stutter, and barked, "Hands up! Register!" Now my heart jumped into my throat. I can open it," I stammered. My fingers fumbled on the buttons. The drawer slid open with a metallic click. He grabbed the bills, shoving them into his pockets. "The safe," he demanded. "It's on a timer," I said, voice cracking. "It won't open until morning." He cursed under his breath, turned, and bolted into the rain. The van peeled off. No headlights, just the sound of tires slapping wet pavement. My knees nearly gave out as I hit the silent alarm. Within 10 minutes, Hollow Creek PD flooded the store. Lights, radios, the works. They pulled the CCTV footage, and we huddled in the back office to review it. The robber was masked, but when he jumped into the passenger seat, the van's dome light flicked on for a second, just long enough to catch a face. Gray hair, pale blue collar, thin shoulders. "That's him," I said. My voice shook. "That's the man from Thursday." The officers exchanged looks. They paused the video, zoomed in. It was blurry, but the resemblance was undeniable. They ran searches, plate checks, nearby footage. Nothing. The van didn't exist on any record. 2 days later, Detective Laura Bennett from the state police called me. They'd found a white panel van abandoned off an old service road in Hollow Ridge Forest, about 15 miles east. Inside, cigarette cartons, scratch-off tickets, half-eaten cans of beans, and footprints. One matched the partial print lifted from our store floor. By morning, a task force combed the area. They found 3 men camped beneath a tarp, 2 in their 30s, both with records. The third was the gray-haired man. His name was Arthur Lane, 71, from Portsmouth. When they cuffed him, Bennett told me later, he didn't resist, didn't even blink. All he said was, "There is a devil all the time." A week later, Bennett called again. Search teams had gone deeper into the woods and found a second site, older, half-buried. Inside a rusted fire pit were animal bones, melted coins, and a charred driver's license belonging to a missing clerk from Vermont. A woman last seen closing a convenience store 3 years earlier. Arthur Lane never confessed. His accomplices did, though not much. Enough to confirm they'd been hitting stores across 3 states. Always late, always rural, always quiet. Lane barely spoke during interrogation. But when the room was silent, he'd mutter things. Numbers, dates, phrases no one could piece together. Sometimes, Bennett said, he'd just whisper that same line under his breath, again and again. "There is a devil all the time." It's been 6 months now. Dollar Haven still keeps me on. Company policy says no one works alone after midnight, but sometimes when I'm restocking shelves at 12:30 and the world outside feels too still, I catch myself staring at the glass doors, half expecting to see those hazel eyes watching from the dark. And I still wonder, when he said there is a devil all the time, did he mean there's one out there? Or did he mean there's one in here, in all of us, waiting for the quiet to let it breathe? Story 2. I was 21 the winter I started working the overnight shift at the Dollar Tree on Harrison Boulevard in Maple Ridge, Oregon. Back then, life hadn't gone the way I thought it would. After 2 semesters at Lane Community College, I dropped out. My grades weren't terrible, but my motivation was. My dad had passed away the previous spring, heart attack at 49, and after the funeral, everything felt like moving underwater. My mom worked double shifts at the nursing home, and the bills piled up fast, so I took whatever job I could get. The Dollar Tree wasn't my dream, but it was steady. Minimum wage, fluorescent lights, endless rows of discount junk. But the quiet nights gave me time to think, sometimes too much time. I worked Friday through Tuesday nights, usually 8 p.m. to 2 a.m., stocking shelves, mopping floors, counting registers. The regular crew was small. Rick, the night manager, mid-40s, mustache, loved to talk about his high school football glory days. Jess, a single mom in her late 20s who kept everyone laughing even when we were half asleep. Malcolm, a college kid who was always listening to true crime podcasts through one earbud. We were an odd little family, tired, overworked, and somehow still laughing at 1 a.m. over dented cans of chicken soup. The store sat at the far end of a strip mall next to a laundromat and a 24-hour donut place. Across the parking lot was a dark patch of woods that always looked like it was swallowing the light. Rick used to joke that if anyone ever went missing around here, that's where they'd end up. I didn't laugh at that one. It was the second week of February 2004, cold enough that your breath hung in the air like fog. I'd swapped my night off with Malcolm because my mom needed help with a plumbing leak that morning. I remember texting him, "You owe me one." He texted back a thumbs up and a skull emoji. That Friday, I came in a little after 7:45 p.m. The parking lot was almost empty except for Rick's old Honda and a black pickup I didn't recognize. The lights inside flickered slightly. They always did when the heaters kicked on. "Hey, superstar," Rick said as I clocked in. "You ready to wrestle with the Easter Isle?" "Depends," I said, hanging up my jacket. "Do we have tape that actually sticks this time?" He smirked. "Dream big, kid." Jess was breaking down boxes near Register 3, humming under her breath. She had her earbuds in, music just loud enough that I could make out the beat. Everything felt normal until about 9:30. That's when the storm started. The rain came first, steady, cold, and heavy enough to make the roof groan. The wind howled down the boulevard, rattling the sliding doors. The lights flickered again. "Great," Jess muttered. "I'm gonna get stuck here if the roads flood." Rick was counting bills in the back office. "We'll close early if it gets bad," he called out. I was restocking the cleaning supplies aisle when I heard it. The chime of the front door. Ding. Late customers weren't unusual, but something about the sound cut through the storm. I glanced toward the registers. 2 men had come in, both in dark hoodies, faces shadowed. One headed toward the back aisles. The other lingered near the front, pretending to look at candy. Jess caught my eye. I could tell she didn't like it either. "Evening," she called out politely. The man near the front didn't answer. The second guy reappeared holding an empty shopping basket. He wasn't shopping. His hands were shaking, not nervous shaking, adrenaline shaking. I started walking toward Rick's office, pretending to straighten shelves as I went. I made it 3 steps before the first man turned and locked the door. The click echoed across the store. Then I heard it, that dry, unmistakable sound of a gun slide racking back. "Everybody down," the man at the front said. His voice was calm, flat, the kind of voice that doesn't need to yell to make you listen. Jess froze. Rick stepped out from the office, eyes wide, cash drawer still in his hands. Hey, take it easy. Just tell us what you want." "Money," the second man said. "From the safe." Now Rick nodded slowly, his lips trembling. Okay, just let me open it." He walked back toward the office, the 2 men following. Jess and I stayed on the floor, hearts pounding. The storm outside was so loud it sounded like static. From the office came a muffled voice, then a bang, one single sharp crack. Jess gasped. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I'd be sick. The taller man came back out, holding the gun low. His sweatshirt was soaked through, water dripping off his hood. He stared at us for a second, then at the door. "Stay down," he said again. Then they left. Just like that. I don't remember getting up. I just remember Jess screaming Rick's name. He was on the floor behind the desk, eyes open, one neat wound in his chest. The drawer of the safe was half open, bills scattered across the tiles. The rain kept pounding the roof, steady and cold, while Jess fumbled with her phone, crying so hard she couldn't get her words out to 911. The police showed up within minutes. Lights, sirens, questions. Detective Laura Marin, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, sat me down near the stockroom. "You said there were 2 of them?" "Yeah, both tall. Hoodies. One had snake tattoo on his hand." Her pen froze mid-scribble. "Left or right hand?" "Right." She nodded slowly, as if she'd already heard that detail before. They found the pickup later that night. Abandoned 2 blocks away, engine still warm. It was registered to a man named Evan Riker, a former employee who'd been fired 3 months earlier for stealing boxes of electronics from inventory. Evan had been angry but calm the day he was let go. "Too calm," Rick had said. "That guy's the type that holds grudges quiet," he told me once. 2 days after the robbery, they found Evan's girlfriend, Tina Morales, in a motel outside Portland. She confessed to driving the truck, but swore Evan had forced her. Evan was gone. The store closed for almost 6 weeks. When it reopened, everything looked the same. But it didn't feel the same. Jess quit a month later, said she couldn't walk past aisle 4 without hearing the gunshot. I stayed longer than I should have. Maybe guilt kept me there. Maybe I just didn't know what else to do. Every few months, I'd get a call from Detective Marin. No updates, still investigating. Same tone, same tired sigh. By 2008, I'd moved to Seattle, started working construction, tried to forget. But every time it rained hard, I'd think of that sound. The chime, the gunshot, Jess screaming Rick's name. Last December, I went back to Maple Ridge for Christmas. The Dollar Tree was still there. Different crew, new paint, but the same layout. They were holding a memorial that week. 20 years since the Harrison Boulevard tragedy. I didn't plan to go, but around dusk I found myself parked across the street anyway. A small crowd had gathered with candles, photos, a few reporters. I stood near the back, hands in my jacket pockets. Detective Marin was there too. She looked older, but exactly the same. Sharp eyes, tired shoulders. She gave a short speech about closure, about how some cases never really close. When it ended, people started drifting toward their cars. I was about to do the same when I saw him, across the lot, standing by the dumpster enclosure, tall, hooded, watching. He had a paper cup of coffee in one hand. When he turned slightly, the sleeve of his jacket rode up. Snake tattoo, right hand. My heart stopped. A delivery truck passed between us. When it cleared, he was gone. I didn't chase him, didn't tell anyone. I just stood there watching the rain start again, soft and cold. Sometimes I wonder if he recognized me, or if he was just checking in. The FBI bulletin still lists Evan Riker as a fugitive, possibly living under another name, maybe working at some store just like this one, pretending to be normal. And every time I pass a Dollar Tree now, I look through the glass doors and think about how quiet the aisles get after midnight. Too quiet, because evil doesn't always hide in the dark. Sometimes it just waits for the night shift. Story 3, I never pictured myself working nights at a discount store. Not when I was a kid, not even when I was barely scraping through high school in Merritton, Vermont, a small, wind-bitten town an hour outside of Burlington. But life's funny that way. It doesn't ask what you want before it rearranges the pieces. When my dad's heart gave out in 2008, I was 20, working part-time at a print shop and trying to keep mom from losing the house. The shop folded 3 months later, and with bills piling faster than I could keep up, I started looking anywhere that'd take me. That's how I ended up at Pine Market, a dollar store wedged between a defunct laundromat and a boarded-up diner on the edge of Route 16. It wasn't glamorous. The floors smelled like lemon cleaner and dust. The break room fridge buzzed like it was dying, and every shelf leaned slightly to one side. But it was steady work, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. The first night I clocked in, my manager, Ralph, handed me a faded green apron and a clipboard. He was the kind of guy who'd worked retail for too long. Gray around the temples, stooped shoulders, the faintest smell of menthol cigarettes. "Keep it simple," he said, flipping the clipboard toward me. "Restock aisle 4, mop the front, and don't prop the back door open. It locks automatically, and the last guy spent half an hour banging on it before the cops showed up." I laughed, but Ralph didn't. "No, seriously," he added, voice low. "Don't go back there longer than you have to. We get raccoons. Or something." He said it with this half smirk that didn't quite reach his eyes. The first few weeks passed quietly. I got used to the rhythm. Fluorescent lights humming, the freezer unit sighing, my own reflection ghosted in the front glass. I'd sweep, stack, face, and repeat. Nights stretched long and hollow like the whole town had forgotten this place existed. There were only 2 other regulars on night rotation. Gina, who worked until midnight and always left humming old Fleetwood Mac songs, and Officer Carver, a cop who'd stop by around 3 a.m. for a cup of bad coffee and small talk. "Graveyard shift, huh?" he'd say every time. "Pays better than nothing," I'd answer. It wasn't much of a conversation, but it made the hours less heavy. Then one Tuesday in late March, something changed. That night the rain came sideways, thin and relentless, the kind that soaks you before you even realize it. Around 2:30 a.m., I wheeled 3 black garbage bags toward the dumpster out back. The lot was dark except for a single flickering bulb above the delivery door. Beyond that, the tree line pressed in, thick and silent. When I heaved the first bag in, I heard a sound that made me freeze mid-motion. Click, click, click. It wasn't a steady rhythm, more like metal tapping against asphalt. Deliberate, uneven. I stood there holding my breath. The wind was dead still. "Probably just a can rolling," I muttered to myself. But when I turned toward the door, I saw movement. a shape just beyond the edge of the light. Someone tall, standing, watching. "Hey!" I called out. The figure didn't move. I felt the hair rise on my neck. I stepped backward, my sneakers sliding against the wet pavement, and fumbled for the keyring on my belt. The door latch caught, and I slipped inside fast, slamming the bolt. When I looked out the narrow window, the lot was empty again. Ralph laughed it off the next night when I told him. "Probably some kid. We get drunks cutting through from the motel down the road." "Yeah, maybe," I said, but it hadn't felt like some drunk kid. That's the thing about silence. When it's deep enough, you can feel when something's inside it with you. The next few nights were normal again. I convinced myself it was nothing. But Friday around 3:10 a.m., I saw headlights sweep across the front windows. A dark blue sedan, pulling into the far corner of the lot. It idled there, engine low, no movement inside. After a minute, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, hood up. He didn't come to the door, he just started walking. Slow, deliberate steps along the side of the building. Every few feet he'd stop, look down at the ground, then keep going. I ducked behind the counter, heart pounding. Through the reflection in the glass, I watched him bend down near the streetlight. Then he turned directly toward me. Even through the glare, I swear he saw me. I picked up the phone and dialed the local police line. "Meriton Police, dispatch speaking. Hi, this is Sam at Pine Market. There's a guy outside, dark sedan, black hoodie. He's been circling the building. You have eyes on him now?" "Yes, he's..." "Wait." The man straightened, pocketed something, and walked back to his car. He didn't rush. He just got in, headlights still off, and rolled away toward the highway. "He's gone," I said. "We'll send a cruiser by anyway," the dispatcher replied. When Officer Carver showed up 10 minutes later, the lot was empty again. "You said a blue sedan?" he asked, writing in his pad. "Yeah, no plates that I could see. We've had some weird calls tonight. Someone loitering behind the gas station, too. Think it's the same guy? Could be. Just keep the doors locked, all right?" For a while it stopped, or maybe I just told myself it did. But one night in early April, the sound came back. Click, click, click. I was restocking the freezer aisle when I heard it. Faint but sharp from the front door. I looked up and froze. There it was again. The same blue sedan, parked diagonally this time, half shrouded by the side of the building. The driver's seat was empty. Then I noticed something else. An object sitting right in front of the glass door. I inched closer, every nerve screaming not to. When I finally leaned close enough to see, my stomach dropped. It was my employee badge, the one I'd lost 3 days earlier. On the back, someone had scratched a line with what looked like a key. "You shouldn't have looked." I called the police again. They searched the area, found nothing. The sedan was gone before anyone arrived. Ralph wanted to install a camera, but corporate brushed it off. Not enough incidents to justify the expense, they'd said. 2 nights later, the story hit the local paper. "Gas station clerk assaulted. Suspect still at large." The photo made my hands go cold. Same blue sedan in the background. Same hooded figure caught in the corner of the frame. The article said he didn't take any cash. He just stole the clerk's name tag. That was my last week at Pine Market. I told Ralph I couldn't handle the schedule, but the truth was simpler. I couldn't handle the waiting. On my last night, I finished my shift early. When the clock hit 5:45, I set my keys and apron on the counter. Ralph looked up. "You sure about this, kid?" "Yeah," I said. "I just need daylight again." He nodded. "Can't blame you for that." I stepped out into the gray morning, the parking lot still wet from the night's rain. The road stretched quiet and empty. But when I reached my car, I saw it. Faint tire tracks leading out from the edge of the lot toward the tree line. Not from any customer. Fresh ones. I stood there a long time before getting in. Then I drove home, trying not to look in the rearview mirror. It's been 3 years now. I work days at a hardware store, sleep normal hours, try not to think about it. But sometimes when I'm driving down Route 16 late, when the streetlights flash by and the woods turn into shadow, I'll catch a glimpse of old glass storefronts in dark parking lots. And for just a second, I swear I see those headlights again, flicking off one by one until there's nothing left but the sound of metal tapping pavement. Click, click, click. Hello friends, I hope you're enjoying this story. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please hit the subscribe button so you can get a new story every day. Story 4. I never thought I'd end up working nights at a Dollar Plus store in Pine Grove, Ohio. Back in high school, I used to picture something different. Maybe moving out west, getting a degree in architecture, living in a city that didn't smell like wet asphalt after every rain. But life's not a straight road. It's a maze that folds in on itself. After my dad's stroke in 2021, college wasn't an option anymore. I dropped out halfway through my sophomore year at community college and came back home to help my mom keep things together. The bills didn't stop just because grief came knocking. My mom picked up double shifts at the nursing home, and I took what I could get: warehouse gigs, food delivery, and finally the Dollar Plus on Main Street. The store wasn't bad, not really. It was one of those slightly cleaner dollar stores. Newer shelves, a working AC that groaned but did its job, and aisles full of bright packaging that made the place feel alive, even at midnight. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was quiet work: mop the floors, restock the cheap candy, slice open cardboard boxes with a dull box cutter, and scan the occasional customer buying energy drinks or off-brand detergent. The only consistent sound was the buzz of the old fluorescent lights and the hum of the refrigerator in the back. Still, nights have a way of stretching time. Minutes felt like hours, especially around 2 a.m., when even the street outside went silent. It was one of those February nights, freezing, calm, the kind that makes your breath fog indoors. I was halfway through restocking the cleaning supplies when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting another notification from my mom or a friend from the group chat, but it was a new Instagram follow request. Username, Maya. Profile picture, girl with auburn hair, faint freckles, warm smile. Something about it made me pause. She looked like someone who belonged in one of those casual Polaroids you'd find pinned to a corkboard. Natural, not like the usual filtered nonsense. I hesitated. The account had posts going back 3 years, about 4,000 followers, 300 following. Legit. Before I could second guess it, I accepted. A few minutes later, a DM popped up. Maya. Hey, I think I saw you on Tinder. You work at the dollar store near Pine Grove Plaza, right? That caught me off guard. I typed back, me. Yeah, the night shift. How'd you know? Maya. Haha, your pics gave it away. I live a few minutes from there. Me. Small world. What do you do? Maya. Part-time retail. Boring stuff. Same as you. We talked for the next 20 minutes. Random stuff, movies, music, her saying she hated the cold, me complaining about the fluorescent lights that never stopped buzzing. She was easy to talk to, fast with replies, funny even. She posted a new selfie around midnight, captioned, "Bored nights again." She asked me to comment on it so she'd look less lame. I dropped a quick fire emoji and a nice pic. She liked it right away, but something was off. Under that same picture, some older guy, maybe late 40s, had commented, "You look way too young for this app." Maya had replied, 17 feels old to me, LOL. My thumb froze. She'd told me she was 22. I scrolled through her page again. Photos at the park, mirror selfies, cafe shots, all perfectly framed, but no group pics. No tags from friends, no stories with anyone else. Just her. When I went back to our chat, the typing bubble was already there. Maya. You're still up? What are you doing after work? Me. Probably heading home. Mom's at my aunt's tonight, so just me. Maya. Oh, maybe I'll come keep you company. That should have been the red flag. But loneliness messes with your judgment. I joked back. Me. Depends, are you real? She sent a laughing emoji. Then, Maya. Send your address, I'll prove it. Something in my gut twisted, but I did it anyway. Typed it out before my brain could stop me. Maya. Perfect. I'll head over when my ride's free. Then she went offline. By the time my shift ended, the night felt heavier. The streets were dead quiet as I walked home, each footstep crunching in the frost. My building was an old 3-story brick apartment, the kind where every door creaks and the heating never quite works. Inside, I dropped my jacket, locked the door twice, and made myself a cup of instant ramen. The silence was almost too still. Even the pipes had stopped groaning. I kept checking my phone. No new messages. By 3 a.m., exhaustion finally hit, and I crawled into bed, half-dressed, scrolling one last time. Maya's account was still up, but the latest photo? Gone. The comments, too. Weird. I drifted off sometime after 3:30. The sound that woke me wasn't loud, just a faint creak, like a slow footstep on linoleum. My eyes snapped open. The streetlight outside threw a dull amber glow through the blinds, just enough to outline the furniture. For a second, I thought I was dreaming, but then I heard it again. Closer, a shuffle, a drag. Someone was inside. I sat up slowly, heart pounding so hard it drowned out everything else. The air felt colder, sharper. My phone was on the nightstand, but I couldn't reach it without moving. Then I saw it in the corner near the closet. Something shifted. A silhouette tall, still, watching. "Who's there?" My voice cracked, no answer. Just the faint glint of something pale, a face, reflecting the streetlight, a grin that didn't belong to anything human. I bolted, out of the bed across the living room, flinging the door open so hard it slammed into the wall. The hallway was empty, the air freezing against my bare feet. I ran next door and pounded on my neighbor's door until he opened it, eyes wide with confusion. "Someone's in my apartment," I shouted. "We called the cops." They searched every inch front door. Locked windows. Locked. Except one in the kitchen, the small one above the sink. The latch had been flipped open. No footprints outside. No sign of forced entry. One officer asked if I'd been having trouble sleeping, said something about sleep paralysis or hypnagogic hallucinations. I nodded, but I knew what I saw. That grin, the way it didn't move, it was real. When they left, I couldn't stay there. I crashed at my neighbor's place until sunrise. By morning, Maya's account was gone. Not just deactivated, erased, like it never existed. I never figured out who or what was behind it. But every night after that, before starting my shift at the Dollar Plus, I checked every lock twice, and I never ever sent my address to a stranger again. Story 5. I never thought my life would shrink down to fluorescent lights, mops, and the hum of broken ceiling fans. But here I was, midnight on a Thursday, stocking shelves at a Dollar Haven in the tiny town of Riverton, South Carolina. The kind of town where the Walmart shuts by 10 and the loudest sound after dark is the train that passes 3 miles out. When I was a kid, I used to tell people I'd be an architect one day. I was good at sketching, always doodling skylines and buildings with glass walls and open rooftops. But then Dad's heart attack happened 2 years ago, and Mom's medical bills followed fast behind. I dropped out of college after my sophomore year, thinking I'd only take 1 semester off to help out. That semester turned into a job at Dollar Haven. Night shift, $15.25 an hour, and a back that started hurting way earlier than it should have. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep the lights on at home. Plus, I liked the quiet. The store closed at 9:30, and the rest of my shift, usually until 2 a.m., was just me, the hum of the coolers, and the occasional thud from the stockroom. The only other person on nights was Eddie, the assistant manager. Eddie was 28, tall, skinny, with dark circles that looked permanent. He'd worked here for 6 years and had a kind of tired energy that made him seem older. He mostly hid in the office pretending to do invoices, which meant scrolling Reddit or watching sports highlights on his phone. That night, the night it started, we were setting up early for Christmas. Halloween hadn't even passed, but corporate wanted trees and ornaments out before October was over. So I was knee-deep in glitter and fake snow when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Normally, I ignored my phone on shift, but this one wasn't a text. It was a DM notification from Instagram. The username read, At forever_Perez, no profile photo. Just a blank gray circle. The message preview said, check this out. I almost deleted it. I'd had my share of scammy DMs. Fake giveaways, crypto nonsense. Click here to claim your free gift card. But something about the account name made me pause. Maybe it was boredom, maybe curiosity. I opened it. The message contained a single link to another Instagram account. I shouldn't have clicked. God, I shouldn't have. The profile loaded slowly, and when it did, my stomach tightened. It was a grid of photos. Girls, dozens of them. Some looked like high schoolers, others maybe my age. Every picture looked like it had been taken without them knowing. One girl was waiting at a bus stop, earbuds in, another walking her dog, one sitting at a diner counter, stirring coffee. I scrolled further. More of the same. Different girls, different towns, always candid, always distant. There were no captions, just strings of numbers beneath each post. 200, 400, 5,800. The comments were short, coded, confirmed, good angle, sent. I felt the air leave my chest. Jesus, I whispered under my breath. Mia? I jumped. It was Eddie's voice from behind me. He'd come out of the stockroom, holding a clipboard. You okay? He asked, frowning. Yeah, my friend texted something weird, I said quickly, locking my screen. He nodded and wandered off toward the back. I watched him disappear behind the swinging double doors, then exhaled slowly. I took a screenshot of the account and sent it to Claire, my best friend since high school. She'd stayed in Riverton, working at a small clinic downtown. Me. Hey, random, but can you check this account? It's creeping me out, Claire. What is it? Me. Just look. It's all pics of random girls. Claire. Okay, hold on. Holy shot, E.T. Mia. That's my cousin in one of those I froze. Me. What? Claire. Scroll halfway down. Blue hoodie sitting at a park bench. That's her. That's from last week. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I looked again. Blue hoodie, park bench, a Riverton park. This wasn't some random internet creep. Whoever ran that account was local. By midnight, I couldn't stop checking my phone. Every few minutes, I'd refresh the page, half expecting new photos to pop up. I was halfway through stacking boxes of wrapping paper when Claire texted again. Claire. Mia, I think there's one of you. My hands went cold. Me. Stop. You're kidding, Claire. I wish I was. Scrolled to the last row, I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the screen before I scrolled down. Bottom right corner. There I was. It wasn't a selfie. It was me outside the store, locking the door. My green Dollar Haven vest catching the fluorescent glow. The photo was grainy, but the angle too familiar. It had been taken from the parking lot, across the street maybe. My chest felt tight. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. Eddie? I called out. No answer. The stockroom light flickered. Eddie! Nothing. The store felt suddenly too still. The hum of the coolers faded into an eerie silence. I checked my phone again. Another notification popped up from the same burner account. At forever_Perez sent you a message. You shouldn't stay so late, Mia. My heart started hammering. I dropped the box cutter in my hand, the clang echoing across the empty aisles. I backed toward the break room door, fumbling for the handle. Eddie, I yelled again, louder this time. He appeared a moment later, pushing through the stockroom doors, annoyed. What? I held up my phone with shaking hands. Someone's watching me. He frowned. What are you talking about? This! I shoved the phone toward him. Look, these are pictures of me. From outside. From here, he squinted at the screen, his face pale in the harsh light. Where'd you get this? Instagram, some random account. It's Eddie, it's from tonight. He didn't say anything, just handed my phone back. Mia, he said slowly, the cameras out front have been down for months. I know, I whispered. He ran a hand through his hair. You should call the cops. Yeah, I'm going home. I'm not staying here. Go. I'll close up, he said. The parking lot felt massive when I stepped outside. every shadow stretching long under the streetlights. My car was parked near the dumpster, the same spot where the first photo must have been taken. I walked fast, keys clenched tight, trying not to look around. But halfway to my car, I heard it. A click. Not loud, but sharp, like a phone camera. I spun around. Nothing. Just rows of parked cars and the empty glow of the Dollar Haven sign flickering overhead. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove home. My hands shook so bad I almost missed the turn onto Pine Street. When I got home, I checked the account again. Gone. Deleted. No trace. No screenshots except the one I'd sent Claire. I barely slept that night. Every creak in the hallway sounded like footsteps. Every car that passed made my heart race. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was over. Maybe a prank. Maybe some weird scam. Then Claire called me at 9 a.m. "Mia, you need to sit down," she said, voice trembling. "What? What's wrong?" "My cousin, remember the one in the blue hoodie? She's missing." I felt my stomach drop. The next few days were a blur. Cops showed up at the store asking questions. They wanted to see the account, but it was gone. Eddie said he'd heard nothing that night, didn't see anyone outside. The police said they'd look into it, but I could tell they thought it was coincidence. Only it wasn't. 3 nights later, another DM came through. Different account. No photo, no followers. The message said, "You're next on the list." That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't gone back to Dollar Haven since. Every night I keep the lights on. Every sound outside sends my heart into my throat. But sometimes when I check my phone at 3 a.m., I see it. A new notification from a name I don't recognize. Always the same message. "Check this out." And I know one day when I finally open it again, it won't just be a picture of me. It'll be the last picture I ever take. Story 6. I never planned on spending my late 20s working the graveyard shift at a Dollar Tree in Ridgefield, Oregon. When I first came back home after college, I told myself it was temporary. A way to make rent until I could live off my paintings. I'd just finished my art degree from Portland State, full of bright, ambitious plans. I thought I'd sell prints, maybe get into a gallery, maybe even teach. But temporary in Oregon has a way of stretching longer than you expect, especially when rent creeps up. Job calls go unanswered, and every art fair you apply to has a "we'll be in touch" that never actually comes. Dollar Tree became my limbo. The store sat on the far end of Ridgefield's main strip, wedged between a 24-hour gas station and a tattoo parlor that smelled like disinfectant and cheap cologne. The building's fluorescent lights buzzed constantly, and on rainy nights, which was most nights, the ceiling tiles leaked near aisle 4. The one with the cleaning supplies. My co-workers were good people. Tired, quiet, the kind who measured their life in paychecks and cigarette breaks. But the night shift was mostly just me, a mop bucket, and the endless hum of coolers. That's where I met him. But before that, I guess I should explain how I even got there. I grew up about 2 hours south of Ridgefield, near a little town called Yachats. My parents, Glenn and River, were old-school bohemians. Incense, wind chimes, homemade everything. They raised me on folk music and the idea that the universe provides. It's sweet in theory, until you realize the universe doesn't pay rent. When my depression hit in my mid-20s, all that spiritual optimism evaporated. The universe wasn't providing, it was just watching. Therapy helped. So did medication. But art was my anchor. It was the only thing that turned the fog into something I could see. My paintings started to change. They used to be vibrant. Ocean blues, wildflowers, portraits of friends. But when the dark days came, my work followed. I painted distorted faces, skeletal bodies, figures that looked half human, half something else. It was therapy, but to the internet, it was aesthetic. My Instagram, once a ghost town, started gaining followers. My most viral piece was called The Devourer. It was a twisted humanoid figure with hands for teeth and a gaping stomach. People called it brilliant. I called it coping. The money was just enough to keep the lights on in my studio apartment off Main Street, but it wasn't enough to quit Dollar Tree. It was a Wednesday night when he first came in. October 19th. I remember because it was the week before Halloween, and we were drowning in fake cobwebs and plastic skeletons. The air outside smelled like wet asphalt. Inside, the heater made the aisles feel claustrophobic. I was at the register, scrolling through my phone between customers when the door chime went off. Ding! A man stepped in. He looked out of place from the start, tall, lean, maybe late 30s, wearing a black coat that brushed the floor. His skin had a gray undertone under the harsh lights, and his hair looked deliberately messy, like someone who styled himself to look like he didn't care. He didn't grab a basket, just drifted through the aisles, hands behind his back, studying everything like he was in a museum. When he finally came to the counter, he set down a single thing, a black sketchbook. "You draw?" His voice was calm, low, almost too smooth. "Yeah," I said, scanning the barcode. "Mostly weird stuff. Darker themes, I guess." He gave a faint smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "That's good. Most people only draw what they want others to see." "Not what's really there," I laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, well, I guess it's cheaper than therapy." He tilted his head, studying me. "You're honest?" "That's rare." I gave him his change. But before he left, he said something that froze me. "You should post more. Your page, it's one of the few worth following." My hand stopped midair. I hadn't told him my name, or my handle. "How do you—" I started. He just smiled faintly. "I'll be in touch." Then he walked out. But he left the sketchbook behind. That night my phone buzzed. A new message on Instagram. At Elliot Gray Art. No posts, no followers. Profile picture was a plain black square. "Nice meeting you tonight. I have a proposition. I want to commission something. Name your price. No restrictions." Normally I'd be thrilled, but something about it felt off. Too fast. Too personal. Still, rent was due. I typed, $100? A moment later, "You're undervaluing yourself. $1,200. Draw hunger, whatever that means to you." My heart kicked. I didn't ask questions. Just replied, "Deal." For the next week, I worked on it every night after my shift. The painting turned into a monstrous figure. A man whose mouth stretched down to his chest, ribs visible through torn flesh, stomach sewn shut with black thread. It scared me, but it felt right. I sent Elliot the final image privately. Minutes later, $1,200 hit my PayPal. Then, beautiful. Real beauty is cruel, isn't it? We started talking more. His messages were strange, like riddles. He said he worked in unusual mediums. When I asked what kind, he said, "Things that used to be alive." One night he sent, "Want to see my latest piece?" I hesitated, then typed, "Sure." A disappearing photo appeared. It was a goat's head, submerged in murky green fluid, lips carved away, teeth etched with tiny symbols. I nearly dropped my phone. "Is that real?" He replied instantly, "Completely. Found it at a slaughterhouse. Skulls are capsules. They hold everything a creature ever felt." I didn't respond. Just stared at the screen. A few days later, another disappearing photo. A monkey's head this time. The eyes replaced with black stones. The mouth sewn shut but bulging, like something inside was pushing to get out. My stomach turned. I texted, "That's too human. I can't look at stuff like that." He replied, "Interesting you should say that. My dream is to work with a human skull. I've been looking for one. Maybe you could help." My fingers froze. I didn't answer. I deleted the chat, the app, everything. After that, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. At work, I kept glancing toward the entrance every time the door chime rang. Nothing. Until one night. We closed at 11. I took the trash out back, the bags heavy with old candy and broken plastic. The parking lot was empty, except for a figure standing under the streetlight across the alley, tall, still, watching. I froze. My breath fogged the air. "Hey!" I called out. No response. Then, slow as anything, the figure turned. Even from that distance, I saw the faint reflection of pale skin and a black coat brushing the ground. I dropped the trash and ran back inside, locking the door. For the next 10 minutes, I just stood there, staring through the front glass. No one. By the time my rideshare pulled up, the lot was empty. It's been 6 months now. I moved apartments. I don't use my real name online anymore. But sometimes when I walk home from work, I feel it again. That prickling at the back of my neck, like eyes tracing every step I take. Sometimes I think about what Elliot said, about skulls being capsules, about them holding everything a creature ever felt. And on nights when I can't sleep, I wonder if he's still out there, waiting to add one more skull to his collection. Story 7. I never thought I'd still be living in the same town I swore I'd leave behind. When I graduated from college with a degree in environmental studies, I pictured something bigger, working for a sustainability firm, maybe teaching workshops about conservation, or at the very least, living somewhere that didn't smell like diesel and rain-soaked asphalt. But life doesn't ask for permission before it reroutes you. When my mom's health started slipping 2 years ago, I left Denver and moved back to Brookdale, Texas, a speck of a town just off I-35, 40 minutes from Waco. I told myself it was temporary. I'd help her out, save some money, and get back on track. But temporary things have a way of sticking. The rent was cheaper, but jobs were scarce. The only consistent paycheck I could find came from the Dollar Haven on the edge of town, a squat, pale green box of a building that looked the same day and night under the humming fluorescence. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something steady. I started on the evening shift, working under Maria, our no-nonsense manager who had perfected the art of juggling inventory, customer complaints, and her teenage son's soccer schedule, all while surviving on gas station coffee. My co-workers were a mix of misfits who somehow made it work. Eddie, a wiry guy in his 50s who said he'd once toured with a Leonard Skynyrd tribute band, and Tasha, 19, full of nervous energy and phone camera confidence. When our night stalker quit without warning, Maria asked if I could cover a couple of overnight shifts each week. I hesitated. The pay was barely better, but the hours meant I could be home during the day for Mom, who'd been having trouble sleeping since her surgery. So I said yes. At first, the nights were quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet where you start to notice the smallest things. How the air conditioner sputters every few minutes, how the lights hum at slightly different pitches, how the clock above aisle 6 ticks a half-second slower than the one by the break room. By 11 p.m., the world outside the glass doors turned still. The highway lights glowed faintly through the fog, and inside the aisles felt endless under the pale white glow. That was before the woman showed up. It was a Thursday night in early November, the kind of night where the air has a bite to it, cold enough to sting your fingers if you forgot your jacket. Eddie was in the back unloading boxes of Christmas tinsel and fake pine garlands, grumbling about how we hadn't even hit Thanksgiving yet, while I manned the register, scrolling absently through my phone. The bell above the door chimed. I looked up expecting a trucker or one of our regulars, but instead a woman stepped inside. She didn't belong there, not just because of her clothes, but because of how she carried herself. She was tall, maybe late 30s, with ash blonde hair that fell in a smooth sheet down her back. Her coat looked expensive, soft beige wool that didn't belong anywhere near discount shelves and cleaning supplies. She didn't grab a basket. She just drifted slowly down each aisle, hands clasped in front of her, eyes tracing the shelves without really looking at anything. When she finally came up to the counter, she set down one item, a small bottle of lavender-scented hand sanitizer. "Quiet night?" she asked. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Yeah," I said, scanning the bottle. "Pretty dead after 9. Folks around here like their early nights." She smiled faintly. "That's good. It's safer that way." I froze for half a second. "Sorry?" She tilted her head slightly like she'd said something perfectly normal. "Some places change when the sun goes down, don't you think?" I gave a weak laugh. "Guess so." She handed me a $100 bill. I started. "I don't think I can break this." But before I could finish, she turned and walked out, leaving the sanitizer behind. Eddie came out a few minutes later, holding a box cutter. "Who was that?" "No idea," I said, still staring at the door. He shrugged. "Probably one of those city folks staying at the motel off 35. They wander in sometimes, looking for snacks or soap or whatever, maybe. But something about her didn't fit. Not the way she moved, not the way she looked at me. She came back 2 nights later. This time she didn't buy anything, just wandered the aisles again, slower this time. I noticed she avoided the cameras like she knew exactly where each one was. When she passed the register, she stopped and looked at me. "You ever notice," she said, "how the air smells different after dark?" Like the town holds its breath, I forced a smile. "Can't say I've noticed." "Things come out when people stop paying attention," she murmured, almost to herself. Then she turned and walked out. That was when the weird stuff started. Small at first, like the stockroom door being open when I was sure I'd locked it. Displays shifted an inch to the left. A faint metallic smell that came and went, sharp and strange like blood and rust. Maria said it was probably the plumbing. Eddie joked that raccoons had broken in, but the smell only showed up after she'd been there. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, she came again. Her hair was pulled back this time, her face pale and tense. She moved fast, grabbing random things. A pack of batteries, duct tape, nail polish remover, a box of candles. When I rang her up, she leaned in close enough that I could smell something faintly sweet on her breath, like fruit and metal mixed together. "Don't stay here alone on Friday," she said quietly. "Why not?" I asked, forcing a nervous laugh. She just smiled that same faint smile and walked out without another word. Friday night came anyway. Tasha left at 10. Eddie had called out, said his truck wouldn't start. It was just me. The store was still. The clock read 11:23 when the bell above the door chimed. It wasn't the woman. It was a man. Tall, shoulders too broad for his hoodie, hands buried in his pockets. He didn't glance at me, didn't say a word, just started moving down the aisles, fast but deliberate. Something in my gut told me to keep my distance. I watched him on the monitor above the register. He walked straight to the back, past paper goods, past cleaning supplies, and stopped near the stockroom door. Then he looked up directly at the camera and smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that didn't reach his eyes. The monitor flickered. When it came back, he was gone, but the door never chimed again. My hands went cold. I picked up the phone to call Maria, but the line was dead, just static. I could feel the hum of the lights vibrating in my chest. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out from behind the counter, my shoes squeaking against the linoleum. Every sound felt too loud. I told myself I'd just check the back room, make sure no one was there, then lock up early. The air got colder as I neared the back. The stockroom door was closed now, but something white was sticking out from underneath, a folded piece of paper. I crouched down, heart hammering, and pulled it free. In neat block letters it said, "Midnight." My throat went dry. Then from behind the door, a voice, low, male. "You stayed." I dropped the paper and ran. I don't even remember unlocking the front door. I just remember the cold air hitting my face, the parking lot lights buzzing overhead, my breath ragged as I fumbled with my keys. When I finally looked back at the store, the lights were still on. Everything looked normal, but in the reflection of the front window, just behind the counter, I saw her, the blonde woman. Only this time she wasn't smiling. She was staring out at the empty road, like she was waiting for someone or something. The next morning Maria called. She said the security footage from that night was corrupted, static after 11:25. No video, no audio, nothing. I didn't tell her I quit. She figured it out when I never came back. Sometimes when I drive through Brookdale late at night, I can still see the green glow of Dollar Haven off the highway. I keep my eyes on the road no matter what, because deep down I know, if I look toward the glass doors, she'll be there, waiting. Story 8. I never imagined I'd end up working the night shift at a Dollar Tree in a place like Bramblewood. It's one of those quiet Ohio towns that seems stuck somewhere between the past and a long-forgotten map. A single blinking traffic light, a diner that closes at 8 o'clock, and a main street that always smells faintly like wet asphalt and burnt coffee. When I was younger, I pictured my life differently. I thought I'd be teaching high school English by now. Maybe married, maybe not. But definitely not here, unpacking boxes of dollar cleaning supplies at 2 a.m. After my dad passed away from a stroke in 2021, I came back home to help my mom keep the house. She's all I've got, and Bramblewood was cheap. The local school wasn't hiring, and the only steady work around was at the Dollar Tree on Maple Street, the one wedged between the laundromat and the pawn shop. The job was simple. Restock shelves overnight, clean up, clock out before sunrise. It wasn't much, but it paid the bills. The night crew was small, just me, our manager, Tim, and a woman named Carla who could outwork anyone twice her size. Tim was one of those managers who'd been there forever. The kind of guy who knew every squeak in the floor tiles and treated the break room like his personal throne. Carla, on the other hand, was funny in a blunt kind of way. She smoked menthols behind the loading dock and called everyone kid, even though I was 28. The first few weeks were fine, peaceful even. The aisles were quiet except for the hum of the refrigerators and the occasional rustle of cardboard. I liked the solitude. It gave me time to think, or not think at all. But then little things started happening. It began one night during our 3 a.m. break. Carla was scrolling on her phone, talking about how her teenage son had started obsessing over slime kits he saw on YouTube. I joked, "Guess he's the reason glue prices keep going up." She laughed, flicked her lighter, and we moved on. The next day I was on Instagram during lunch, and there it was, an ad for Elmer's glue in Spanish, with a caption about slime supplies shipping from Mexico. Weird, but not alarming. I told myself it was just the algorithm. Everyone knows phones listen, right? But the coincidences didn't stop. A few nights later, Tim and I were restocking the seasonal aisle. He picked up one of those cheap plastic Halloween masks, white with a cracked grin, and said, "Man, these things give me the creeps. My grandma used to tell me a story about some guy who wore one of these during a break-in back in the 70s. We laughed about it and moved on. 2 days later, I was at home, letting YouTube autoplay while I folded laundry, and up pops a documentary thumbnail about an unsolved 1970s home invasion in rural Ohio. The picture? The same mask, same cracks, same crooked grin. That's when I started feeling it, that low hum of unease that sits somewhere under your ribs. A week later during break, Carla took a drag off her cigarette and said, "You ever feel like your phone listens to you?" I chuckled, maybe too quickly. "All the time." She nodded slowly. "Last night, I told my husband I wanted one of those new pressure washers. This morning, Facebook hits me with an ad for the exact one. Exact model." I laughed, but it came out shaky. "Yeah, it's freaky." "Don't think about it too much, kid," she said, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "You start thinking too much, you'll go nuts." But I did think about it. That night, I went home and dug my old flip phone out of a drawer. I'd kept it for emergencies. No apps, no microphone permissions, just buttons and bad reception. My smartphone had started acting strange, opening apps by itself, recording voice notes I didn't remember making. One night, I powered it on just to check my email. The camera light blinked for half a second, then went off. A file appeared in my downloads. It was an audio recording, faint static at first, then my voice. "Man, these things give me the creeps." Tim's voice followed, muffled but unmistakable. "My grandma used to tell me a story about some guy." It was our exact conversation. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I confronted Tim in the stockroom. "Hey, you ever feel like your phone's listening to you?" He smirked. "Feel like it?" "It is, everyone's is." "No, I mean like actually recording." He shrugged. "Algorithms, man." "You say it, they sell it. Nothing new. Hell, corporate listens to us too. You know those scanners we use? They've got mics built in. They call it behavior tracking." I stared at him. "Why would they play it back?" He didn't answer. Just gave me this look, like he knew something I didn't. After that, things started getting worse. I'd leave work around 5 a.m., and there'd always be a white van parked across the street. No logo, no front plate. Sometimes it was idling, sometimes not. I told myself it was some delivery driver grabbing breakfast at the gas station, but it never moved. One night, I decided to test something. During break, I said, loud enough for the store's ceiling mics to catch, "I've been looking for a 1930s oak wall clock, Roman numerals, brass pendulum, something vintage." When I got home that morning, my phone showed me 3 new ads. One for a vintage wall clock auction in Indiana, another for restoration brass pendulums, the third for a 1932 oak case clock with the same description I'd used. I stopped bringing my phone to work after that. I wish I could say that fixed it. 2 nights later, around 2:30 a.m., The store's PA system crackled to life. We never used it during night shifts. I froze mid-aisle. Then through the speakers, I heard my own voice. Distorted, but mine. It's creepy how quiet this street is. That was something I'd said to Carla 2 weeks earlier, behind the loading dock. The sound cut off, leaving only the buzz of the lights. When I told Tim, he didn't look surprised. "Sometimes it's not about selling you something," he said softly. "What's that supposed to mean?" He didn't answer. He just stared at me for a long moment, then said, "Clock out early tonight." The last night I worked there, the air felt heavy, the kind that presses on your lungs. Carla had called out sick, Tim wasn't there, and I was alone. Around 4 a.m., I was sweeping near aisle 6 when I heard a faint hum. Not from the lights, from my apron pocket. My flip phone was vibrating. I hadn't turned it on in days. The screen was dark, but the mic icon was lit. I pulled the battery out and dropped it on the floor. The hum stopped. Then from the front doors, headlights washed through the glass. The white van, same one. Only this time, the engine wasn't running. The driver's door was open. I remember gripping the broom like a weapon, stepping toward the doors, my heart beating so loud it drowned out everything else. There was a shape standing just inside the entrance. A person, wearing the cracked smile mask from the Halloween box. I ran, didn't even grab my bag, just bolted out the back door into the freezing dark. I quit the next morning. Now I keep my phone sealed in a metal box when I'm not using it. I pay cash for everything. No cards, no apps, no listening. But last week, my old smartphone, the one I smashed with a hammer, showed up on my kitchen counter. The screen flickered on by itself. A voice file started playing. My voice. "Don't think about it too much or you'll go crazy." Only I never said that. And from somewhere in the background of the recording, I swear I heard the hum of fluorescent lights. The same hum from the Dollar Tree. The same hum from aisle 6. The same hum that's now coming from inside my walls. Story 9. I never imagined I'd end up working the night shift at a Dollar Tree in Hollow Creek, a town so small you could blink and miss it off Highway 26. The kind of place where the gas station shuts down before 9, the diner closes at 7, and the only thing open past midnight is the neon glow of the 24-hour laundromat across from our parking lot. When I first moved here, I told myself it was temporary, just a stopover. But temporary has a way of stretching into something permanent when you're not paying attention. After my dad's construction business folded during the pandemic, I dropped out of community college and started bouncing between odd jobs, warehouse work, janitorial gigs, delivery driving, until I landed at the Dollar Tree on Ashcroft Street. The hours were brutal, but it was steady, and after years of scraping by, steady felt like a small kind of miracle. By the time I'd been there 6 months, I knew the rhythms of the place like muscle memory. The same fluorescent hum, the same half-empty aisles, the same old radio station that played static between songs. My manager, Paul, always left around 9:30, muttering something about trusting the night crew, which meant it was usually just me and Caitlin, a college student who worked weekends for extra cash. She handled the register. I restocked, cleaned, locked up. Simple, predictable, safe. Until that night in November, it started like any other shift. Cold wind outside, empty store inside. I was arranging a new shipment of artificial Christmas trees near the front display when Caitlin called out from the register. "Hey, Eli, your phone's blowing up." I glanced over. She was pointing at my phone, buzzing on the counter beside her. I walked over, wiping my hands on my apron. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Mara. "You know her?" Caitlin asked. "No idea," I said. "Probably spam." But when I unlocked my phone, the notification wasn't a text. It was a DM on Instagram. The profile picture showed a woman with auburn hair, half her face hidden behind a camera lens. Normal enough. The message said, "You don't remember me, do you?" I frowned. The name didn't ring a bell. I tapped her profile. It wasn't a bot account. Hundreds of followers, real photos, tagged friends. But as I scrolled, something tightened in my chest. One picture caught my eye. A grainy shot of a lake at sunset. Lake Norin. I hadn't seen that place in years. I typed back, Sorry, should I? She replied instantly. We met last summer. You were at Lake Norrin. You were sitting on the dock. You told me about Anna. My throat went dry. Anna. I hadn't said her name out loud in months. She'd been my girlfriend. She died in a car accident 2 years ago, on a night I still couldn't think about without feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. We'd been driving back from Portland in the rain. A deer ran out. I swerved. The memory ends there. I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later with glass in my arms and blood in my mouth. She never woke up at all. Since then, I'd buried her, buried the past, buried everything that reminded me of that night. And now some stranger on Instagram was talking about it. I typed back slowly. I think you have the wrong person. Her reply came fast. No, Eli. You told me everything. About the accident, about how you still see her sometimes. My fingers froze above the screen. How could she know that? I hadn't told anyone. Not even Caitlin, not Paul, not my mom. A chill crawled up my spine. Everything okay? Caitlin asked, noticing the look on my face. Yeah, I lied. Just some weird spam account. I slipped my phone into my pocket and tried to shake it off, but the feeling stayed, the heaviness in my chest, the sense that something had shifted in the air around me. By 10 o'clock, the store was empty. The parking lot outside was washed in that sickly yellow glow from the streetlights. Caitlin left right after closing, tossing a casual, "See you tomorrow," over her shoulder. I stayed behind to mop. That's when my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message. It was a photo. I unlocked the screen and froze. It was a picture of me, standing behind the front counter, taken just minutes ago. The caption read, "You look tired, Eli." The photo was taken from somewhere inside the store. My blood went cold. "Caitlin," I called out, even though I knew she'd left. My voice echoed down the empty aisles. Nothing. I scanned the security mirrors, then walked toward the stockroom. The back door was shut. No movement. The only sound was the low hum of the freezer. I tried to steady my breathing. Maybe someone had hacked an old photo. Maybe this was a prank. Then my phone buzzed again. "Check aisle 6. My pulse roared in my ears. I turned slowly toward aisle 6. Seasonal decor. The lights overhead flickered, one of the bulbs stuttering in that annoying buzz it always made. I took one step, then another. Halfway down the aisle, I saw it, something white sticking out from behind a stack of wrapping paper rolls. I leaned closer. It was a folded piece of paper. Inside, written in neat, slanted handwriting, were 3 words. "You left me." My stomach dropped. I stumbled back, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my teeth. My hands were shaking as I dialed Caitlin. She picked up after 2 rings. "Eli? Everything okay? Did you come back to the store?" "No." "Why?" "Someone's in here." "What? Do you want me to call Paul?" Just stay home," I said, my voice trembling. "Lock your doors." I hung up and backed toward the register. The cameras were useless. Half of them had been broken for months. I grabbed my keys and sprinted to the front door. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit like a slap. The parking lot was empty, silent. Then my phone buzzed again. "Don't run, Eli." I turned toward the glass windows of the store. For a moment, I saw a reflection that wasn't mine. A pale face in the glow of the fluorescent lights. Long auburn hair. Anna. I blinked, and she was gone. I stood there for what felt like forever, every instinct screaming at me to leave, but my legs wouldn't move. Finally, I forced myself to my car, slammed the door, and drove home without looking back. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face in the window. The next morning, I called Paul and told him I was sick. I couldn't go back. Not yet. But by evening, I got another message. "You forgot something at the store." Attached was a photo, my keyring, sitting on the counter next to the register. I knew I'd taken them. I remembered locking up. I drove back at sunset against every ounce of common sense I had left. The store was dark, empty. The front door was still locked. My keys sat on the counter exactly where the photo had shown. As I picked them up, something caught my eye. A faint smudge on the glass of the front door. I leaned closer. It was a handprint. Small, almost delicate. The kind of print you leave when the glass fogs from your breath. Next to it, written in the condensation, were the words, "See you soon." The next day, I quit Dollar Tree, packed my things, left Hollow Creek, and drove back to Portland. But sometimes, late at night, I'll get an Instagram notification from a new account. No profile picture, no posts. Just one message waiting in my inbox. "Do you remember me now?" I never open them, but I always check the window, just to be sure. Story 10, I never pictured myself back in Mill Haven after college. It's one of those towns that photographs beautifully. Mist over the lake, maple leaves turning red in the fall. But living here feels like slow suffocation, the kind of quiet that amplifies every thought in your head. I used to swear I'd leave for good, but life has a funny way of dragging you back to where you started. After my dad passed, my mom's health took a bad turn. Her arthritis got worse, and she couldn't keep up with the bills on her own. I came home thinking it would just be for a few months. That was almost 3 years ago. Now at 28, I'm still here, working nights at the Dollar Haven off Willow Creek Road, the only store in Mill Haven that stays open past midnight. The town dies after 10 p.m. Streetlights hum, houses go dark, and even the air feels heavier. The store's fluorescent bulbs buzz like a swarm of flies, and sometimes I swear the shadows between aisles move when I'm not looking. But that might just be my tired brain making things up. My shifts are simple: restock, count the drawer, lock up, mop the floors. I keep to myself. It's quiet work. Too quiet sometimes. That night, the night it started, I was restocking the cleaning supplies aisle. The clock above the register read 11:42 p.m. Outside, rain tapped against the glass in steady rhythm. I remember because it made the night feel even more closed in. My phone buzzed in my hoodie pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting it to be my mom checking in. But it wasn't a text. It was a DM on Instagram. I hadn't seen one of those in months. The message preview read, "Hey, heads up! Someone's pretending to be you." The sender's name, Mark Linton, rang a faint bell. We'd gone to high school together, though I couldn't remember ever speaking much. Curiosity won over hesitation, and I opened it. "Don't freak out, but I think someone's using your pictures. Fake account. Thought you should know," he included a link. I hesitated before tapping it. Something about the message felt off, but I clicked anyway. The page loaded slowly. My stomach dropped. Every single photo was of me. Some were old, college parties, hikes with friends, but others I'd never uploaded. Shots taken in my bedroom, me at my desk, me standing in the kitchen, late at night, in pajamas. Photos that no one else should have had. I felt my pulse spike. My throat went dry. I lost my old phone 2 weeks ago, slipped out of my jacket pocket during a late shift. I'd tried to find my iPhone, but the signal had died somewhere near the woods south of town. I told myself whoever found it probably sold it or tossed it. But now I knew they hadn't. They'd unlocked it. The fake account used a name I didn't recognize, Evan West _21. But everything else, the face, the captions, even the bio, was mine. New beginnings. Late nights, quiet minds. Phrases I'd written before. I kept scrolling, each image worse than the last. Then I saw the story icon glowing. I tapped it. It was a short video, a boomerang, 2 seconds looping endlessly. The camera panned from the street to the front of my house. The white porch light flickering, my car parked in the driveway. I froze. The story had been posted 2 hours ago. Someone had been outside my house. Recently. My chest tightened as I looked around the store. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. I could hear my own breathing, fast and shallow. I locked the front door immediately. The jingling bell echoed through the empty aisles as I bolted it shut. Then I pulled my phone out again and reopened. Find my iPhone. The location dot appeared. Distance, 92 feet. I blinked. 92 feet. That meant whoever had my phone, whoever made that fake account, was right outside the store. I grabbed my jacket and went straight to the back door, heart hammering. The loading dock light flickered on automatically as I stepped into the cold. "Hello?" I called stupidly. The rain had stopped, but the ground glistened. The air was so still it felt unnatural. The dumpster sat about 30 feet away, half hidden by the shadow of the neighboring building. Something shifted behind it. I froze. For a split second I saw movement, a dark shape ducking out of view. My brain screamed, "Go back inside," but I didn't move. I took one step forward, then another. A crunch echoed, footsteps on gravel, and then silence. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on the dumpster until I reached the door. My hands fumbled with the keys. I slipped inside, locked it, and leaned against the wall trying to steady my breathing. I should have called the police right then, but I didn't. Part of me still thought maybe it was a glitch, some elaborate scam. At midnight, I finished my shift and drove home. Every headlight behind me made me flinch. Our house sat at the end of Maple Hollow Lane, right where the forest begins. My roommate Ryan was still awake when I got home, sitting on the couch with a beer in hand and his pit mix, Luna, at his feet. "You look like hell," he said, half joking. "Someone's using my pictures," I said, shutting the door. "From my old phone," he frowned. "What do you mean, using?" "Posting them, pretending to be me, and they just uploaded a video of our house." From outside, that wiped the smirk off his face. He set his drink down. "You serious?" I nodded. "I think they're still around." Luna lifted her head and gave a low growl. We both turned toward the front window. The porch light flickered again. Ryan stood, grabbed the baseball bat he kept by the door, and peeked out. "I don't see anyone." Then Luna started barking. Full-on, frantic barking. "Back door," Ryan said, and we both ran through the kitchen. Through the glass, we saw the yard. The motion light was on. The fog was thick, swirling over the grass. Something, or someone, was standing at the tree line. Tall, still, watching. My throat tightened. "Hey!" Ryan shouted. The figure moved, just slightly, then bolted into the woods. I swear for a second, I caught a glimpse of a faint glow, like the screen of a phone lighting up a face, before it vanished into the trees. Ryan ran outside a few steps, but I grabbed his arm. "Don't," I said. "They want us to come out." We locked every door, every window. I turned off all the lights except the one in the hallway. Neither of us slept that night. The next morning, the fake account was gone. Deleted. I checked Find My iPhone again. No signal. Ryan wanted me to file a report, so I did. The officer who came by, a guy named Sergeant Holbrook, took my statement and nodded politely but didn't seem convinced. "Probably just some teenager messing around," he said. "These things happen." I told him about the photos from inside my room. He paused at that. "You sure you never uploaded those anywhere?" I glared. Yes, I'm sure he wrote something in his notebook, told me to keep my phone on lost mode, and left. That night when I went to work, Ryan texted me around 1 a.m. "Luna won't stop growling at the back door. You sure it's just paranoia?" I didn't reply because I had just gotten another DM. No username, just a gray silhouette and a message. "I like the new curtains. Blue suits your room better than gray." My stomach flipped. The curtains in my bedroom, I had replaced them 2 days ago. How could they know that? I checked the store's cameras the moment my shift ended. The feed was glitchy, grainy static every few seconds. I scrolled back to 11:42 p.m., around when the message had come. There, for less than a second, a reflection in the front glass. A person standing outside, holding up a phone. My phone. The following nights blurred together. Work, home, paranoia. Every time I turned around, I thought I saw movement. Every time I heard my name whispered in the dark, I told myself it was the wind. But then the dreams started. Every night I'd wake to the faint vibration of a phone that wasn't there. Sometimes I'd swear I heard my old ringtone playing from the woods. On November 15th, I came home to find my bedroom window open. The curtain, that same blue one, fluttered in the cold air. And on my desk, placed neatly beside my laptop, was a photo, a printed photo. It showed me, standing in the Dollar Haven aisle, from behind, taken through the store glass. The timestamp scribbled on the back read, 11:42 p.m. "You looked lonely tonight." I moved out of Millhaven a week later. Told my mom I needed a fresh start, changed my number, wiped my accounts, bought a new phone. But sometimes, when I scroll through Instagram, I still get a notification. Suggested for you at ebenwest_21. No profile picture, no posts, just that same bio. Late nights, quiet minds, and every time I feel it, that cold crawl at the base of my neck, the sense that someone's still watching, still waiting, still close. Story 11. I never imagined that the sound of a humming fluorescent light would be something I could almost lean against like a wall. But there I was, mopping the linoleum floors of the Maplewood Dollar Tree at 1:17 a.m., the smell of bleach and burnt coffee lingering in the air. My life in many ways had become the rhythm of that store. Sweep, stock, check, repeat. I was 31, freshly divorced, and had nowhere else to be. The receptionist job at Dr. Levinson's dental office had been the only life I thought I'd know. For 8 years, I knew every patient's birthday, their dogs' names, the sound of their children running down the hallway. Then one December morning, they handed me a pink slip and a box of personal items, saying the practice couldn't afford me anymore. The divorce had been messy emotionally and financially, and the alimony barely kept my little apartment above the laundromat in Maplewood from going into foreclosure. So when the Dollar Tree manager, a heavy-set man named Greg, offered me the night shift, I took it without thinking. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't even interesting, but it paid and it kept me moving. Most nights were uneventful, the kind where I could listen to the muffled sound of the highway out back, the occasional car crunching over wet gravel, and pretend the world outside the store wasn't moving at all. I memorized every aisle, every cooler hum, every squeak of the shopping carts. By midnight, the store became a quiet cocoon. I would refill the candy racks, stock the clearance items, and occasionally brew a fresh pot of coffee, though no one ever came in that late. It was Thursday, and the store was bathed in the eerie flicker of the fluorescent lights. I was wiping down the counter when the front door chimed. "Evening," I said, instinctively forcing a smile. A man stepped in, maybe 5'6", thin, his hair silver but neatly combed. He wore dark green slacks and a blue button-down shirt tucked in perfectly, scuffed black shoes, and carried nothing but a single folded dollar bill between two fingers. His eyes, a piercing gray, seemed to measure everything in the room. "Evening," he replied, his voice calm, measured, almost too precise. "Quiet night," I ventured, scanning a candy bar for him. He tilted his head slightly, observing the fluorescent glare above. "Quiet isn't always safe," and he said, and paused, letting the words hang. I laughed nervously. "Yeah, I guess you could say that." He selected a roll of mints and a bottled water, setting them carefully on the counter. I rang them up, and when he reached for his change, his hand shot forward and grabbed my wrist. Not hard, not violent, but deliberate, practiced. His eyes never left mine. "Be careful," he whispered, almost a breath. "There's always a devil." Then he let go, tucked the items into his shirt pocket, and left. The chime echoed in the empty store. I stood frozen for a moment, the fluorescent light buzzing over my head, heart hammering. At first, I told myself it was just some eccentric old man, maybe lonely, maybe trying to scare me for attention. But over the next few nights, I found myself locking the side door twice, checking the cameras more than usual, and avoiding the dimly lit aisle that seemed to absorb the light. Monday night, rain streaked the windows. I was counting the till, humming quietly to myself, when headlights cut across the front glass. A white panel van, no license plates, no markings, idled by the pumps. My stomach sank. Before I could react, a man jumped out, hooded and masked, pistol raised. "Register!" he barked. I froze, hands shaking as I slid the cash toward him. He cursed and demanded the safe. 12-hour lock, I stammered. I can't open it." The masked man swore under his breath, spun, and ran toward the van. It peeled away into the rain without headlights. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely press the silent alarm. 10 minutes later, the Maplewood PD arrived. Watching the CCTV footage in the back office, my breath caught. The passenger door of the van had caught a glimpse of a man, the same silver-haired man, same posture, same clothes. I felt my stomach turn. "That's him," I whispered, pointing at the screen. The Man from Thursday. State troopers traced the van to an abandoned logging trail in Pine Hollow Forest, where they found a campsite wedged between boulders. Tarps, stolen cigarettes, scratched lottery tickets. Huddled inside were three men, two in their 30s with criminal records, and the older man, Harold Benton, 72, from Portsmouth. When they arrested him, he said only one thing, calm and deliberate. There is a devil all the time. Weeks later, the search teams discovered a second site, half collapsed, with a fire pit containing burned coins, animal bones, and the charred ID of a missing Vermont clerk. Benton never said much except in the quiet spaces between questioning, murmuring numbers, dates, and the same haunting sentence. I still work nights at Maplewood Dollar Tree. Corporate now requires 2 clerks after midnight, but the store feels emptier than ever. Sometimes in the hum of the coolers and the soft flicker of the fluorescent lights, I think of Benton's eyes, steady, certain, and I wonder, was he warning me of a single devil or a world full of them? Even after all this, I can't stop thinking about him. Some nights I swear I see movement in the peripheral aisles, a shadow gliding just out of sight. And sometimes when the lot is empty and the rain hits the roof, I hear whispers, soft but deliberate, as though the night itself is speaking. There is a devil all the time. Story 12. I never imagined I'd be working the overnight shift at a Dollar Tree in Ashwood, Ohio. When I was 19, I pictured my life in a loft in Columbus, painting murals for local cafes, maybe selling my own artwork online. Weekends spent wandering farmers markets or biking along the Scioto River. But life has a way of quietly, painfully veering off the map you drew for yourself. My mom's diagnosis changed everything. In the summer of 2010, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Overnight, she went from being the fiercely independent woman who ran a small bakery downtown to someone who struggled with the simplest daily tasks. I was 22, freshly out of college with a degree I couldn't afford to use yet, juggling 3 part-time jobs just to keep the lights on and groceries in the fridge. Art had to wait. Dreams had to wait. Reality didn't care if I had plans. It was my friend Samira who mentioned the Dollar Tree on Main Street. "They're hiring overnight," she said one evening, leaning against her Honda in the dim glow of the street lamp. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. Not glamorous, but steady. You could do worse, I needed worse. So that's how I ended up there. Green apron, name tag reading Eli, keys clipped to my belt loop, a mop that smelled faintly of disinfectant and despair. Ashwood was small, barely 5,200 people, a town that felt sleepy even in daylight. Main Street was the artery, gas stations, a pharmacy, a closed-down arcade, a couple of diners that still somehow smelled like fry oil at night. And tucked between a shuttered furniture store and a 24-hour laundromat was our Dollar Tree. Day shifts were chaotic. Moms grabbing birthday decorations while toddlers darted between aisles. Contractors in muddy boots hunting for cheap tools. Old ladies squabbling over coupons. But after 10 p.m., the world seemed to shrink to the humming fluorescent lights and the low drone of the freezers. My first night alone was a Tuesday. Outside, the wind carried a damp chill that made my hoodie feel insufficient. Rick, the evening manager, gave me a rundown before he left. He was mid-40s, always smelled faintly of pipe smoke, and had this way of looking at you like he already knew every mistake you were going to make. "End caps look okay?" he asked, eyes scanning the aisles as if the fluorescent bulbs might shift their glow in our absence. "Yeah, all good," I lied, my stomach tight. "Front aisles mopped? Dumpster run before 4? Back door locked at all times? Don't prop it open. We had some kid throwing fireworks back there last summer. Don't want to repeat." I nodded. "All right, Eli. You're on your own. Call me if anything weird happens, but don't call if it's just your imagination." The automatic door slid shut behind him, leaving me with the faint smell of lemon-scented cleaner and the echo of a town asleep. By 2 a.m., I'd restocked the seasonal aisle, aligned plastic pumpkins like they were soldiers, and swept up candy wrappers and price tags. The lot outside was empty except for a single street lamp flickering near the entrance. Across the street, the old gas station sat like a hollow carcass, faded sign, rusted pumps, no life except the occasional scurrying rat. I decided to take the trash out. 3 black bags, heavy with cardboard and shrink-wrapped plastic. The back lot was lit by a single buzzing lamp, casting more shadow than light. Beyond it, the pavement dissolved into the dark tree line. I had just thrown in the first bag when I heard it. A slow, deliberate tap, 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 irregular, echoing too precisely against the asphalt. I froze, scanning the darkness. Nothing. Probably a branch, I muttered to myself, though my voice sounded absurd in the vast emptiness. I shoved the rest of the bags in and hurried back to the rear door, heart hammering in rhythm with my footsteps. 10 minutes later, I was back at the counter, flipping through the nightly sales log when headlights cut through the glass. A car, silver with rust around the wheel wells, parked halfway across the lot. It idled there, engine low. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, hood pulled over his head, hands in his pockets. He didn't move toward the entrance. Instead, he walked along the side of the building, slow, deliberate, counting steps or marking territory. I couldn't tell which. I crouched behind the magazine stand, pretending to straighten shelves, watching him out of the corner of my eye. He stopped under the streetlight, bent down, picked something up, and then, without turning his body, his head snapped toward the front windows. Our eyes met. Even from that distance, I felt the precision, the intent. He knew exactly where I was. I grabbed the store phone, hands shaking. "Norwood Police?" I said when the line connected. Yeah, this is Eli at Dollar Tree. There's a guy in the lot acting weird. Silver sedan, hoodie. Could someone check on him?" The dispatcher's voice was calm. "Do you have a plate?" I can't see it clearly." "All right, we'll send a unit by." By the time the cruiser arrived 5 minutes later, the car was gone. Officer Miller stepped inside, tired eyes, hands resting on his utility belt. "Trouble?" he asked. I explained what I'd seen. He nodded slowly. "We've had a few calls tonight like that. Might be nothing. Keep your doors locked if you feel uneasy. We'll drive by again." It didn't happen again for 3 nights. Then Friday, just past 3 a.m., movement caught my eye in the reflection of the front glass. Same car, same lot. This time he didn't get out immediately. I reached for the phone but didn't dial. Eventually the driver stepped out. Same deliberate walk. He stopped in front of the store but didn't try the door. He bent down, placed something on the pavement, and walked back to his car. Engine off, headlights out. He vanished into the darkness. I stepped outside. My heart was pounding. On the asphalt, just where he'd stood, was my name tag, Eli, the one I'd lost earlier that week and never found. 2 nights later, I read about the gas station clerk down the road, assaulted. No money taken, just the employee badge. My stomach turned. I lasted 1 more week before quitting. Told Rick I couldn't hack the hours, but truth was, I couldn't handle that silver sedan, that patient, cold precision. I boxed up my apron, keys, and left them on the counter. Didn't look back as the doors slid shut behind me. Even now, driving down Main Street past the shuttered laundromat late at night, I can see those headlights, the car sliding silently into the shadows, always waiting. Friends, be sure to tell in the comments which story you liked the most, and don't forget to subscribe and like.